All right, Just a Thought podcast. We are back with another one. I'm your host, Ray Swaby. Guys, we have a awesome show for us today. We are gonna dive into something deeper than you think, okay? I have brought someone whose content has been blowing up online, someone whose work is literally claims to decode your soul's blueprint through numbers. All right, so today we have Hayden Crawford, aka Dreemtime. Okay, he's a numerologist, a star seed, a decoder, and the man behind Dreemtime Academy, based out of Perth, Australia. But his influence is global. Look, he's on our show. Okay, so guys, I want you guys to help me and give him a hello to the show. Hayden, it is nice to meet you, and thank you for coming on the show.
You're very welcome. It's lovely to meet you as well. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, yes. So I want to start off with a question, if you do not mind me asking you. And here's my question to you. So, is there a number that warns you when you're about to fail or succeed?
That's a really interesting question and a question that I've never been posed before. So I haven't had a chance to really give it much thought. I wouldn't say necessarily so, no. I mean, the way numerology works is quite different to that. It is more of a way of looking at your strengths and weaknesses, your true soul purpose, the best times for you to embark on new projects and ventures. And, when we combine it with astrology, it can even reveal our galactic origins. But, if I was to, sort of intuit this or feel into it, a number that might warn us, um, I mean, it would probably be the shadow, the 11, maybe the shadow of the 11, because the 11 is duality. So in the color mirrors system that I work with, because I work with a numerology based color therapy system, the 11 is this one here. And you can see from the look and feel of this very black and white bottle, it's all about, good and bad, black and white, right and wrong.
Right.
So, in some sense, it could be the shadow aspect that is trying to present itself, and often it's not always good. So I'd say 11, but a lot of people see 11 as being, because it's a master number, they
Mm-hmm.
um, they see it as an angel number and they see it as a sign of ascension. So all colors and numbers have both positive and negative connotations. The shadow of the six also is the opposite of creativity, which is destruction. And I suppose that if you look at that, it could be self-sabotage, addictions, worry, anxiety, and also, the number 29 is almost more of an intensification of the number 11 vibration. The 29 is grace under pressure. So it's where people might have to go through divorce or separation from family because they've chosen to have a swift evolution of soul in this incarnation. And then karmic numbers like the 16 is also the tower card in traditional tarot, which is an explosion of old structures in your life for a consequent clarification. So if you've got if the 16 appears for you, it could be that you're about to experience the tower, or there could be a betrayal. Because if you look at the way the 16 is created, it's the one next to the six. The one is about the self, and the six is Venus, the planet of love. So the karma of the 16 is that you were selfish in love in a previous or parallel incarnation. So, it can be a warning that there is a betrayal, or, as I said, the Tower of Cards may come tumbling down around your ears.
Wow, that is. Oh, I would not want to have 16. So you talk about karmic numbers. Can you kind of go into more detail about what karmic numbers are and why they're important to know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a karmic number is there's only four karmic numbers in Pythagorean numerology, well, in numerology in general, and that's the 13, the 14, the 16, and the 19. And what they indicate is in a, well, I don't believe time is linear. So there is no beginning, middle, and an end. Time is a spiral of consciousness. So everything exists simultaneously. So I actually call past lives parallel lives. And so it just means that you have, sort of done something within that incarnation that may require some rebalancing, not as a punishment, but more of a lesson. So, for example, the 13, a lot of people who are born on the 13th day, or if you add up all the numbers in their date of birth and it totals 13 before you reduce it to a 4, they feel like they have to work really hard for the things that they've got in their life. That's the karma of the 13, you see. So it's like working hard for your material possessions. The 14 is where you may have restricted someone's freedom or had your own freedom restricted in a previous or parallel incarnation. So it could have been you were incarcerated or you imprisoned somebody. The 16 we
Okay.
explained, but the 19 is where you may have abused your power in a previous or parallel incarnation. And so the karma of the 19 is that you might not step up into the role of the leader in this life because you're scared you might abuse your power again.
Wow. Wow. And it's crazy because when you say the 14th, I'm thinking of certain people that were born on the 15th, 14th that had to deal with uh problems and had to go through hard times whether it was getting arrested or something like this. That is crazy. So that's how I was just like, okay, wow, all right. I know somebody that was born on the 14th that had to deal with something like that. That's crazy. So before we get really into it, I want to ask you, what made you become a numerologist? Why numbers? Why is this something that you want to share with the world, and why is it something that you've been dedicated to for so long?
Well, I never was very good at maths at school. I was okay. I did quite well in my first year. I went into top maths actually. I remember now from school, but then I rebelled, and then I started just not learning anything. So I had no interest in maths. So numerology and mathematics are so totally different. And it was later on in life that I came across numerology. I was actually in my think I was in my late 30s or maybe my early 40s when I found, or it found me. And I was working in corporate IT recruitment and I'd done that for 15 years. And I always felt like I was living someone else's life. And, I was good at it. I was making loads of money, but I was unhappy. So I started learning about the Australian bushflower essences through Ian White, and through learning about the doctrine of signatures, which is the way that a flower will communicate its essence, its therapeutic qualities through the number of petals that it has and its color and its texture. And so, that was when I first got introduced into numerology. It was through exploring how flowers communicate with us. So, for example, if a flower has five petals, it's good for the heart center. Like the bluebell, it has qualities for opening up the heart chakra and helping us with unconditional love. So I then started delving deeper into Pythagorean numerology, which is what I specialize in. So there are different forms of numerology. You've got Chaldean, you've got Egyptian, you've got Pythagorean, but I've always favored Pythagorean because I've always found it more accurate and reliable. And so, yeah, by learning my own numerology helped me get out of corporate IT recruitment. And as a life path 9, which is your purpose, I recognize that I'm a healer, a counselor, and I'm here to help people. And as a day number, I've actually got the karmic number 16 as my day number, but it reduces to the seven. The seven is the teacher. So I was like, okay, so I wonder what would happen is if I just do that. So literally, I just threw caution to the wind and I left my job and I went to reinvent myself. I sold my home and me and my husband moved down to the southwest of Western Australia. And I set up Dreamtime Academy, which is a cosmic mystery school for starseeds. And I was just falling in alignment with my numerology, and I just wanted to test it. That if I did what I loved, that the rest would happen, and it did. So I've been going now for what 12 years now, and it's the business is just growing, and it's just been a fantastic catharsis for me because now I feel fulfilled, and I think that's what was missing when I was living when I felt like I was living somebody else's life working just to make money. It wasn't right because I'm here to help people, and if I live as a helper, then it serves me well. But the other thing I wanted to mention as well is the other thing that happened to me that got me interested was when I met my husband. um we both have got the same birthday. So we're both born on the 16th of October. He's 1 year older
Okay.
than me. So what that helped me to recognize was we were so similar in so many different ways,
Mm.
but also significantly different because our life path number was different. But I could see the reflection of myself, and it was the easiest relationship that I'd ever had in my life. And being a gay guy, I'd struggled a lot with bad relationships prior to meeting him with people that were betraying me more than
Mm.
anything else. And I had trust issues. But um, Mark has come in to help me, and I've come to help him with the karma of the 16. So we don't fall into that pattern of or abusing our power in love, you see. So I
Mm.
often say to people, if you meet somebody born on the same birthday as you, hold on tightly to them because and especially if you've got a karmic number, because they'll help you resolve the karma that's associated with that number.
So even if their life paths are changeable, it's still something that could be worth it.
Yeah, well, your life path per se isn't necessarily changeable because your ruling number, otherwise known as your life path, will dictate what your purpose is in life. So
Mm.
yeah, if you're on the wrong path, you might find yourself in the wrong job. But ultimately, through your awakening process, you'll always be guided back to living your purpose. And the way you calculate your life path number is by adding up all the numbers in your date of birth and then reducing it down to a single digit, unless it totals 10, 11, or 22. And they stay as they are.
Mm. I want to say, first of all, I want to say thank you for sharing that because I think that's an awesome story about how you got here and where you are going to now. So I have a couple questions on that. You said you're a life path nine. I know nines are very smart. All right, sevens and nines are very intelligent, but you guys are very adaptable to your surroundings, and you guys are very compassionate. um Being a nine life path, you guys, I've heard that people that are nines as well are very stubborn. They don't like to listen, right? It's they kind of have to walk their own path. It doesn't work when people tell them what to do.
Oh,
Do you
100%.
think? Do you? So do you think being a life path nine? Do you think that was like some sort of a challenge for you? Getting on this journey that you're going on now.
Oh yeah, I mean, I hate being told what to do. That's why I had to leave the corporate world because I always felt like I was wiser than the person that was trying to tell me what to do. So, and I'm better off working alone because that's the hermit energy, the seven and the nine. It's like I observe life from afar. So I actually, as I'm 53 now, and I've become a right hermit. Like my mum was saying to me the other day, she goes, "Oh God, you've really turned into a hermit." And I was like, At first I was like, no, I haven't. And then I was like, well, yeah, I have actually. I'm just really quite happy helping people, but from afar. So I sort of like, I don't necessarily need to smell people's breath.
Yeah, yeah, but no, I find life path nines interesting. Even people that were born on the ninth. My brother was born on the ninth, and he even though he's not a life path nine, he has some of those traits that I seen from reading the life path nine. So let's jump into this. All right, so this segment is called the origin code. Who is Dreamtime? Okay, so let me ask you this: when you when did numbers stop being just numbers for you? What moment made you realize they were messages?
That's a great question as well. So I would say that um, I don't even recognize a point in time that I recognize that. All I know is that I started understanding the vibration of the number and create and understanding its meaning. But it was a cathartic journey, I think, that I went on to get to that point. So, um, yeah, it wasn't like an aha moment where suddenly, like this bolt of lightning hit me and it was like, oh no, I see the light. It was like, okay, so just over a process. I think it was probably my life path nine that really made me start waking up to the power of numbers. And as you mentioned before, recognizing as well that numbers not aren't always just positive implications. You don't always just look at, I'm a nine, I'm wise, and I'm a humanitarian. They've got a shadow as well. So yeah, delving into the shadow of certain numbers as well really helped me to recognize that they are the language of light, as opposed to something that just adds up or you know is is a mathematical tool.
Okay, okay. And let me ask this from you. So, you go by Dreamtime, right? What does Dreamtime mean? And is it a calling or a persona or a spiritual identity?
That's a really good question as well. You're asking some belters here, aren't you?
I
Well,
studied, man.
yeah, well, I mean, dream time. Again, no one's ever asked me that before, and I'm glad you have because it is a meaningful word. In Australia, where I live, dream time is belongs to the indigenous. So and it represents the dreaming, which is going into altered states of consciousness and connecting with the earth and actually different dimensions of consciousness. So the originally my business started off as just being dream time, and I put the academy on there when I decided that I was going to make it a cosmic mystery school and I wanted to teach numerology, color therapy, and cosmic consciousness. So the name evolved, but I wanted to change the spelling of the word to a double E instead of EAM, because out of respect to the indigenous word, because it's like we white fella have come to Australia, stolen all their land, you know what I mean? And then pilfering all their words as well. And it's like, I didn't want to do that, so it's out of respect, but also because of the sound of the E as well, the EE. Um, if we look at the Kotodamas in Reiki, it's like the vowels often carry a resonance with them as well, and it just felt like it was vibrating the right frequency. And yeah, I've done the numerology on the Dreamtime Academy, on Dreamtime Academy, and it kind of attracts people who have had trauma either in their current life or in parallel lives, and they're often the people that seek out the support. So I do a lot of wounded inner child healing and past life regressions, and help people to get back on track, to align with the fifth dimensional earth frequencies.
I appreciate that. And um I know you're someone that is very humble, 'cause I can just tell, but I appreciate that because, Dreamtime sounds like a place where it's healing, right? It's not just dealing with numbers. It's not just dealing with um I want to say it's not just dealing with people just coming together. It's a healing. It's healing, and you dealt with people that are dealing with trauma right now. So I want to say that is amazing because it's not an easy job, and just hearing other people's stories. I can imagine for you, it can be quite touching, and sometimes it's like, oh, do I keep going because I'm hearing all these trauma cases? But no, people need that, and that's awesome. To be honest with you, um, so let me ask you one more question on this topic. What's one thing most people misunderstand about numerology that you wish you could wipe off the internet forever?
And it's interesting you should ask that question because I actually host a podcast myself on my YouTube channel called the Numerology Show. So what I do is
Oh, okay.
I bring numerologists together from all over the world that have written books on numerology, and we've had discussions, like this. What are the myths, of numerology? And it's interesting hearing it from their perspectives because a lot of these numerologists, they know way more than I do. And I thought I knew a lot, but I know nothing compared to some of these guys. And one guy I speak to is called Lynn Buez, and he's the grandfather of numerology. He's written 15 books on it over his lifetime. He's a bit of an old boy now, but he sort of does cosmology and numerology. And the myths that come up in the conversations, are around, mainly the master number vibrations, because people assume if they are a master number, like a 11, a 22, or a 33, and as Lynn explains, that they go even higher than that. They go into the 44s, 55, 66, all the way to 99. So, but in Pythagorean numerology, we just have the 11, 22, 11 and 22. So the myth of that is that people are almost somehow more special or more ascended or more connected, or they're here for a bigger purpose and all of this sort of stuff. So it can bring about a little bit of like numerology snobbery, and it's not always the truth. Of course, they do have the potential, for being guides for humanity. But a lot of them live in the mortal aspect of their number. For the 11, it's the 2, which is actually quite passive, sensitive, and or the 6, sorry, or the 4, which is the boots on the ground, the business person,
The
the
builder, yes.
builder, yeah. So I think that's probably the myth about numerology, specifically with regards to a number. A lot of the time as well, people will um, they'll go into disbelief about numerology if they don't maybe identify with their own life path number, or they so then if they don't know who they are at a soul level, they've not felt into that, they might not identify with their life path number. But again, very rarely that happens. People normally just get blown away when they hear their life path number and the qualities of it and the meaning behind it. But also the association with astrology. A lot of people will think, oh, well, it's the same as astrology, but again, it's completely different. Even though they both connect with like the planets, they're they're just totally different subjects. So yeah, that would be the main myths. But specifically, I noticed on one of the shorts that I put up on TikTok where I was interviewing a lady called Joe Soley, and she said, "Well, you can't be a life path number 33." And then all these people like were commenting on the video going, "Well, I'm a 33 and you can be." And it caused a bit of a hoo-ha about it. And I understood what she was saying, because it's Christed consciousness, and she was just saying at this point on the Earth's timeline that we're not really capable of attaining Christed consciousness because we're living in such duality on the earth plane right now. But it is always your potential. So, of course, we do reduce the 33 down to the 6 in Pythagorean numerology. So, yeah, so these are the myths I think that need to be sort of explored more deeply.
I'm pretty sure I have to ask this question because I'm pretty sure you've been asked it. Um, can you tell just off somebody's personality what their life path number is?
Well, sometimes I suppose if I meet them and I've known them for a while, there'll be certain clues. Like you'll always notice an 8 wants to be in control, or like a 7 will be really inquisitive about what's laying beneath the surface, and they'll go deep into information. And they'll be interested in like the mystical arts and crystals and stuff. So you can see by their behavior what they're likely to be. Or a 3, they love music, lyrics, poetry, the arts and the healing arts. They're usually really like sociable when they're living positively, but they can also be quite critical when they're living negatively. um, the 4s, a lot of guy 4s are tradies, and so they're very practical. They're often like looking after their physical bodies and stuff. So yeah, I can sort of intuit into it by looking at their personality traits. Um, but not always, not always, because people sometimes wear masks and they hide their true nature.
Okay, okay,
So I've just lost your sound.
okay,
There, it's
okay.
back.
Sorry. Don't worry, we'll edit this out. Don't worry. Um, can you guess my life path number? I'm gonna tell you anyway, but can you guess?
Well, I don't know if I can, because purely because I don't know you particularly well. I mean, I know that I think you've got something to do with sports or something, haven't you? Do you?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um,
Mhm.
so, a lot of people that that are quite practical and physical and good with that, they often have the 4 vibration, sort of around them. Um, or, because you're doing this as well, you might even be a 22 over 4 because there's that sort of humanitarian element to you as well. Yeah.
Okay. I am a one life path.
Oh, the leader.
Um, but I was born on the second, so
Ah,
I kind of
wow.
have the yin yang.
The 2. Yeah.
Yeah, so I can be very sensitive sometimes. That's something I worked on. Like when people criticize me, it's something I could not stand when I was a little younger. Um, but that is something that I understood after what one one life path and having two energy meant. Um, Once I figured that out, I worked on not trying to take everything in and not trying to be so sensitive to people's thoughts. That's one thing that was a big issue for me.
Yeah. Well, you're the empath. So you take on board other people's feelings sometimes and feel like they're your own. But also, you're in Pythagorean numerology, you would be a 10. So we don't reduce it down to the 1. So that's the entrepreneur. You're the way shower, the protagonist, the leader, but you lead with a soft feminine power. So, it's very entrepreneurial. And, you're all about origins, and, it's all about adaptability as well, the 10. It's a beautiful energy. Often I find people with a life path 10, like you, have past life or parallel life connections with ancient Egypt as well, because it's the sort of sun god stuff. So you will be a manifester as well. You know how to consciously create your own reality. And your big mission in life is to stand in your sovereignty and not give your power away. So, sometimes having the day number 2 and then the life path 10, sometimes you'll want to lead, but sometimes you might just want to follow because the 2 is second in command, whereas the 1 is the leader. So it's a real juxtaposition between your divine male and divine female energies, which is beautiful.
Yeah, I think it's unique. I think I have my days where I feel like I'm in control, but then I have days where I feel like, okay, like you said, all right, take the lead. I don't want to do it today. So that's something I'm working on, and I think with this podcast, it's helped me be more in control. Whether I have to get up and be like, okay, I got to do it again. I got to do it again. This is me. I have to do it, and
Yeah,
I think that's one thing that has pushed me to balancing that energy. Yeah, yeah.
good.
So let me ask you this. Can numerology predict global events like war, um, breakthroughs?
Yeah, yeah, it can. We just filmed a predictions show actually for the Numerology show for 2026 because we're moving into a universal year one next year and we're coming out of a nine. So because we're in 2025 this year, the two plus two plus five is a nine, and the nine is about completions. And of course, nine is Mars as a planet and it's fire energy. So it's like in the color mirror system, it's this bottle here, it's red over orange. So number nine is fire, war. Yeah. So and we've seen what's been going on, all over the world, So, but it's almost like a completion of that. And as we move into 2026, we move into a universal one because you always go from a nine to a one. So it's new beginnings, but it carries more of a softer feminine energy as well because 26 is the two and the six. So the two, as you know, is the empath, the six is love. So it's almost like a new male energy, sort of more of a softer feminine male energy. So I think that what the nine does, it can indicate the completions of old cycles, but also that fire elemental. And we all saw what happened in California right at the beginning of the year.
Yeah,
It was, it really started the year off with a bang. So yeah, if you look back down the Earth's timeline into the past, you'll see pivotal moments where we've been in a universal year nine, and there's been wars, and then the rebirth, because we kind of we're in cycles, aren't we? In life, it's everything is cyclic. So there's beginnings and then endings. It's like the Yuga cycles and the fall of Atlantis, and then the rise of a new dawning. The age of Aquarius and Pisces, and it's so it's very evident, and often we find through the karmic 16 as well, that can predict where things are going to be breaking down around us, explosion of old structures. So but the nine specifically I find is very indicative of war. What else have we got? The three, it's a time of expansion, and the one is always new beginnings, always fresh new spring rebirths. It's a gorgeous time actually because it's like the planet resets itself and it ushers in, new waves of energy. And we've seen a lot of that taking place towards the end of this year with Three Eye Atlas, and it's sort of exchanging all the light codes with the sun, and then the sun emitting those huge solar blasts out into the sort of hemisphere, which was created the aurora borealis and aurora australis as well. So we're seeing all these new light frequencies hitting the planet right now as we're moving into a universal year one, which is upgrading our DNA, so activating our 12 strand DNA, which is helping us to align more closely with our cosmic families. It's like a reunion, the one, so that when we come to a universal year one, it's reunion time with the star families. So we're all expecting there to be massive breakthroughs and disclosure. We're expecting massive breakthroughs with people remembering their origins. So yeah, it's amazing really what it can predict.
so so we're gonna have a year of we can let our hair down.
Mm,
Finally.
yeah.
Okay, okay. That's good. That's good news. And let me ask you this. Have you ever seen a number pattern that made you go, people aren't ready for this truth?
A number pattern. Well, of course, there's the cliche, isn't there? The 1111. It's such a cliche though, because everyone started seeing
Yeah.
that, years ago. Somebody asked me the other day, I'm seeing the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. What does it mean? What does it mean? And of course, it's about getting organized, planning the 1, 2, 3, 4 of life, So sometimes they can be very self-evidential, so very self-explanatory, and you can figure it out on your own. Other angel numbers can be a lot more complicated. And although I'm not a specialist in angel numbers, just certain numbers appearing in my own life have been proved to be very good guidance. Like the 555, it can show up in people's lives when they're really ready to, to sort of move to the next step. They're wanting greater levels of freedom. They're feeling things really intensely because the 5 is the center of the emotional planes. You've got 3 of them. It sort of compounds and amplifies that heart energy, so it can bring about huge breakthroughs, changes, and activations of greater levels of freedom, not only for the microcosm, but the macrocosm as well. So for the zeitgeist. So yeah, there are the angel number sequences I do find are getting a lot more complicated. But I do think that a lot of people are starting to be able to decode themselves a lot more readily now, as well as the starseed awakening, is intensifying.
I appreciate you for answering that. Okay, so let me ask you this. Can numerology reveal if someone is living a life that isn't theirs? This is the question I wanted to ask you.
Okay, so just repeat the question again for me so I can get my head around it.
Yes, yes, this is the question I really wanted to ask you. So, can numerology reveal if someone is living a life that isn't theirs?
Yeah, of course it can. Yeah. Well, that's what happened to me, wasn't it? I was stuck in corporate IT recruitment for 15 years. And, I always knew I was kind of living somebody else's life. I mean, that would be good for maybe an 8, who was bothered about making money and wanted to, or somebody who, was just bothered about getting ahead in business, but for a 9 like me, it was completely the wrong path. So, it will tell you where you're going wrong. And I think that you either have the choice to listen, or you can just turn a blind eye and you can just carry on. But it's unlikely you're going to find fulfillment if, say, for example, you've got um, like a life path 11 who's here to guide humanity forward and is, would make a good life coach, spiritual teacher, or social worker. And they are, you know, being a tradie, for example, or they are, sort of not fulfilling their true purpose, or they are, doing something completely wrong for themselves. They might be working as an analyst, so you've always got to take into account, though, it's not just about the life path number, it's about their gifts that are embedded within their day number. But also, you've got to look at their maturity number, you've got to look at their soul urge number, which is derived from their name chart, their outer expression number, their complete name number. So, it's each person has a very unique personality blueprint and purpose that can only be decoded by looking at the whole chart. And that's why I specialize in doing reports for people that help them to understand all aspects of their numerology, astrology, so that they can make better decisions for themselves. And then when you delve even deeper, it'll help you to look at somebody's galactic origins by looking at the position of the sun in their astrological natal chart at the time that they're born, and where that's conjunct or opposite reveals if their soul has incarnated from Andromeda, like mine has, or from Arcturus or Lyra, or the Pleiades, or Sirius, or Orion, or Antares, or Alpha Centauri. And that's when you can really start defining your mission, when you understand your galactic origins. So numerology will help you to understand your purpose and your gifts, your potential, how you're perceived by the outside world, and what your deepest inner yearnings are, and also about who you're becoming. But your galactic origins really help you to define your mission. So it's imperative that we all become aware of where our soul has originated from, but also where else it's incarnated before reaching the earth plane.
Why? Let me ask you this, because as you're speaking, I came upon this question. Why don't most people in this lifetime not follow their life path number? Why is it so hard for people to follow the life path number that was given to them?
Well, it's interesting you should say that, because I actually feel like most people organically do end up finding their way onto their life path. It might be through kicking and screaming, and it might be later on in life sometimes that people, find their way. Um, you almost like you have to be lost before you can find yourself. And the awakening process happens at various different points in people's lives. So those that are on the wrong path will, they'll get their awakening, and it might happen through an accident or an illness. But it will ultimately guide them back onto that. So people won't always find numerology as a way to be able to guide them back onto the path. I just think some people just get lucky and they come across it, and they realize, that they can make better decisions for themselves by understanding it. Other people might, have to go through their awakening process through something a little bit more extreme or in a different way. It might be through astrology, for example. So I never feel like anybody's really on the wrong path. It's just what was right for them at that time. And so but all I know is that when you get into alignment with your purpose, it does shift everything, and life becomes effortless, and you can
Mm.
start living in faith more instead of being in the hustle and struggling and being in survival mode, and all of that stuff which keeps you stuck in 3D. So, and some people may never wake up. That's the other thing. And you've got to just be okay with that as well. There will be people that will just maybe they're not supposed to fully wake up in their life, or maybe their lesson is you know is is to learn what they're not.
I hope that's not me. Oh, so let me ask you this, and we'll do a couple more. So, can numbers reveal hidden trauma or unhealed patterns we pretend don't exist?
Yeah. So it's interesting because many of us don't like or shut down our trauma, especially if it's through childhood. Because we may not even see it as being trauma. We might think it's normal that everybody goes through it. So you find that you know as you develop, you mature, you awaken. Often traumas from early childhood, they'll come back later on down the track, and that's when that's it's like when it stares you in the face, and you've got no option but to sort of look at shining light into the shadows. And often, through the 3811s, that can show childhood trauma. If you think of like an example of a famous person who was a 3811, and that would be Virginia Giuffre, who was the lady that exposed Prince Andrew and the royal family. She was a life path 11, so she's the whistleblower. The 3811s come in to illuminate the darkness and shine light into it. So, and she's done that very successfully, even though she had to, suicide, to cross over, in order to be able to do that. So often they travel the path of the master. So, they have the toughest lives. So, a 3811 or even a 2911 will reveal traumas. The anyone with orange within their soul color resonance as well may have experienced trauma at various points on their timeline as well. Because remember, there are numerous different versions of the wounded aspect of the inner child that exist, so it's not just one. We've often got many that have different sort of traumas, and some of them aren't even, like through abuse. They might just be through somebody saying, you smell, or you're ugly, or whatever it is. So trauma is very different in lots of people. But like the orange vibration can often indicate people that have had trauma, and that will show up through certain numbers, like the number 27, the number 9, um, as well, carries an orange ray vibration as well. And um, yeah, so there are certain numbers that will emit a frequency of color, and orange and color therapy is specifically beneficial for trauma. Um, and even the Blu-ray as well, So, for example, you being a day number 2, because you're so empathic and very sensitive, you could easily experience a lot of trauma yourself, because we have to see the complementary color. The blue is the opposite color of orange in color therapy. And number 2 is represented by this bottle here in the color mirrors, the moon, and it's pale blue over royal blue. So the opposite color of blue is orange. So many 2s may have an unconscious trauma that only comes to light later on down the track. So you might awaken to that. So it could be at that point, many of the more sensitive numbers, like the 2s and the 11s and the 22s of a 4, may start recognizing that they've got to do some of their shadow work at certain points as well.
I appreciate that because I'm still as we're speaking, and I'm thankful that I have done my own shadow work these past couple of years, going through a tough time, and being able to, not hide from it like I used to, and just deal with it, face on, and just continue to. I improved, but it's still something that is going on. It's not a quick finish; it's a marathon. So I like how you pointed that out. Yes, I like how you pointed that out. So I'm gonna ask you a couple more questions, and then I want to we're gonna finish off with some quick takes. So let me ask you this: do numbers expose toxic relationships or soul tie connections?
So do numbers expose soul relationships?
So yeah, do numbers expose toxic relationships or soul tie connections?
Yeah, they do actually. So I often find people who are a master number 33 over 6, they come into master love. So the 6 is Venus energy, it's all about love. And when you're a 33, it's like the amplification of that. So they often attract people with narcissistic personality disorder. And yeah, so and they, because they're rescuers, they often want to try, and because it's a very maternal energy, the pink 6 Venus, it's very motherly and nurturing, so they want to try and rescue and nurture everybody. And then they end up, getting taken advantage of. They then feel abused, and then they fall into the shadow pattern of the 6, which is the victim archetype. So I often see that very closely with 6s and 33s specifically. A lot of 22s will also, because they're being such empaths, and 2s as well, will also attract some of these more toxic dynamics, because remember, the 2 is about partnerships. So that can lead to you feeling second best or not heard if you're a 2. But there's the 6 is addictions as well, self-sabotage addictions. And if you think about the whole triangle, the victim, the rescuer, and the abuser, the 6s tend to sort of play out those narratives more than more than any of the other numbers. But it doesn't mean that they're the only ones. But it's just what I've observed, over doing sort of insights for people on TikTok, thousands and thousands of them, like over the years. You see patterns. So yeah, hopefully that answered your question. And as far as the karmic stuff is concerned, well, yeah, there are karmic relationships, of course, and twin flame relationships, and they can be seen within numerology, especially if there are similarities within birth dates, or patterns. For example, I told you about me and my husband, both born on the 16th of October. So our relationship is karmic. And, it could have very well been that, in a previous or parallel incarnation, we both, sort of got divorced or cheated on each other or whatever. But, in a different form, so yeah, you can see it within the karmic numbers, and specifically with certain number vibrations. I'd say specifically the 6 and the 2.
Okay. And can you tell me a little bit about which numbers are compatible for which, like which in work or in relation or in business, which numbers are compatible with each other and which numbers should stay away from each other?
Okay, that's a great question as well. So the golden rule is that you want to look at people who are on the same plane of consciousness as you. So, for example, you're a 10 or a 1. That's on the physical plane. So the 1, 4, and 7 are physical numbers. The 2, 5, and 8 are emotional numbers or soul numbers, and the 3, 6, and 9 are mind numbers. So you'll be more compatible with 1s, 4s, and 7s. All right. So if you find like a life path number specifically, or even a day number, with those numbers, you're likely to have a really good understanding, a solid connection. The interactions will be easy. There won't be any pretense, so it'll just be a nice flow. For the people who are at like the 2 energy, the 5s and the 8s would be good for you as well. They're soul numbers, they're emotional numbers. And then for me, I would get on better with 3s, 6s, and other 9s as well. So if you're with people that aren't on those same planes of consciousness, then it doesn't mean to say that you're not going to be able to get on, because sometimes they become supplementary relationships. So they almost offer something that you don't have. So it's a great way of rebalancing. So, for example, my husband and I, he's an 8, I'm a 9. I'm a useless money manager, but he's an 8, so he knows how to manage the finances. So I don't even deal with anything to do with money because I'm not interested. It bores me. I'm rubbish at managing it. So, he looks after it. So even though we're not necessarily compatible with regards to our viewpoint on life, necessarily always, the difference is what has made it last for so long.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, your dog.
This is my, he's a light,
What is your dog's life path number?
he's an 8 as well. Yeah, so there's
Oh,
two
it's an
8.
8.
Yeah, so he likes being in control. He is in control, and he's got a day number 3, so he's very intelligent. The 3s are usually really,
Oh,
so
oh,
he will,
okay.
and there's
So
no chance.
let me ask you another thing. So why why is there a stereotype around ones being so argumentative? Why are ones so egotistical?
Well, I'll demonstrate this point to you in color form, okay? Because the 1 is the sun. It's the largest planet in our solar system. So it's yellow, and yellow in color therapy is the color of the solar plexus chakra, which is about your personal power. So yellow relates to the ego, all right? And also fear as well. So a lot of the time the ego is the fearful mind that's just trying to keep you safe. So ones may sort of go into their ego and want to lead, because they're really quite fearful, or they're confused, and they're trying to assert their dominance, or they are trying to claim their power, or they're trying to project that sense of personal power out to the world around them, which can be construed as being ego, but it's not always ego. tens have a very soft feminine energy that can never be abused. So it goes back to the individual expression. The one is the only singular number. So of course it thinks it's the only thing in the world. So, it likes to assert itself.
Yeah, yeah. And why are eight life path eights or people that were born on the eight? Why do they go through a karmic cycle with money?
Well, they're great money managers, but also, yeah, they may go through losses in money. The eight is, if you think about the eight as a sacred geometric shape, it's two circles that sit on top of each other. The circle above is like it represents completion on the heavenly realms, and then the circle underneath is completion on the earthly realms. So it is that whole aspect of there. It's cyclic. So that's why the eight can sometimes be the karma around the completion on both of those realms. And of course, it's always been an auspicious number in many cultures, the number eight. And but it's about completion. And also the eight carries a great sense of judgment, independence, organization, and control as well. So there is an aspect of the eights that need to learn to surrender. And often, if you try and force things too much, especially with regards to your finances, it pushes things further away. So surrendering to um, divine faith is where true abundance lies. So that would be the karma of the eight.
Mm. And why do sevens tend to always end up alone?
Sevens are, they like to observe life from, afar. They are, it's almost like that sort of hermit energy in a way. They would rather observe things from the sideline rather than being deeply ingratiated within, the everything that's going on in life. So they they retreat away to observe because that's where they learn their lessons and they can go deeply into things. So the seven is the subconscious mind and the seeker of truth. So they love the mysteries, the illusions, the miracles, the magic, and the faith of life as well. And they often like to learn through their own experiences. So they often find that, by retreating away, they they find it a lot easier to be able to process their own inner world. And again, it can be that they can find themselves isolated, um, but not always. There are other sevens. If you learn the lessons of the seven, it can also be the teacher. So they end up sharing their wisdom and the philosopher. The seven also carries an aspect of justice and equality as well. So they're normally found as supporters of the underdogs, and they like to, they like things to be fair. So, it's like all colors and numbers have both positive and negative connotations. So just because you're a seven doesn't mean to say that you're going to end up on your own. But you've got to understand the reasons why you may be isolating yourself, and it's because you're kind of reflective, and you don't just scratch the surface. You like looking at everything that lays beyond the veil, and sometimes without interruption is the easiest way to really tap in.
Okay, yeah, my internet cut out. Sorry about that. Don't worry. Um, and let me ask you this. Why are threes, why, and this is a silly question, all right? So why do they say life path number threes or people that were born on the third? Why do they age backwards?
Oh my God, now that's a question and a half, isn't it? Why do threes age backwards? So you mean that they're born, they look old, and as they get older, it's like Benjamin Button, and they become like
Yeah,
really.
because I heard that they are like childlike. Why is threes so youthful?
It is true, actually. A lot of the threes that I know are very playful, and they can be very sociable when they're living positively. Um, I think that they just got this elegance about them. Threes will normally have, sort of very specific physical features. I find that they're often, slightly taller, maybe slightly thinner. They're often quite beautiful. A lot of the three women that I know have got long blonde hair and blue eyes, and they're quite, sort of enigmatic in a way. And they do age very gracefully. They do, so they're very classy, they're very stylish. But when they're younger, they might be the ugly duckling, or there might be, they might be the most wrinkled babies that you ever see. But I think it's because the three is a mind number, and the on the mind plane, so it's analytical, it's a bit critical, and it's also the number of expansion. So as the three learns to fully self-accept, it expands and it moves into it moves into what's the best way to say this? Like just an expanded and better version of itself. So yeah, I think that would answer your question. It's through a self-acceptance that they and moving away from playing the role of the people pleaser or the martyr, that they free themselves of the baggage, and they just in that whole release, they present themselves as being more youthful.
Okay, I got two more questions. We'll get you out of here. Thank you for your time, by the way. Um, so let me ask you this: out of all the numbers and what you have experienced being a numerologist, which number will have the hardest path in life?
I would always go back to the from my experience, the 3811s and the 2911s, they often have the most challenging path because it is the path of the master, and they often learn through issues of separation. So they're learning about unity consciousness through the opposite of that, which is duality, which is good and bad. So they'll get the whole gamut of things. They'll go through divorce, separation from family, even separation from country in the more extreme scenarios. But it's not to say that other master number vibrations don't have equally as tough a journey, because I'm sure they do. It's just I don't know as much about the 44s, 55s, 60s, 60s, 77s, 88s, 99s. And also, the karmic number 16, I think, and also transformation Pluto, the 13, is challenged because that often means that those people have to go through the dark night of the mind. I don't call it the soul anymore because the soul is never dark, to get, to come out stronger. So they often experience a lot of loss of loved ones, or loss of wealth, or loss of whatever, and they have to go through the dark night to be reborn, like the phoenix rising out the ashes into another way of being. So it sort of carries that very Scorpio sort of challenging vibration.
Mm, okay. And my final question to you, what would you say to someone that is curious about numerology but doesn't necessarily believe in it?
Well, proof is in the pudding. I like, for example, I never used to believe in numerology until I learned about it, and I started getting evidence, that it's accurate every time. And I mean, over the years, I must have done thousands of personalized reports and readings for people live. And there's only been like literally a handful of people that haven't identified with what I've said. The 99.9% of people are going, wow, how do you know? I feel exposed. You've identified everything about me that even my closest friends don't know, my family don't know. How do you know this? So the evidence is there. It's not about, I would never try and convince anybody of anything. You need to find your own proof. I've had mine. And I get mine time and time and time again. it works. It's the language of light. Colors and numbers don't lie. It's people that tend to lie, not colors and numbers. So when we learn to decode the language of light, we get really accurate information that will really guide us forward on our life path so we can feel fulfilled. And that's ultimately what all of us want. So why not try it? Give it a whirl, see what happens. What have we got to lose?
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate that. Guys, this is Just a Thought Podcast. Hayden Crawford, aka Dreamtime. Guys, you can go check out Hayden on his platforms. He has TikTok, he has Instagram, he has YouTube. All right, and I'm pretty sure you have Facebook as well, right?
Yeah, I've got faith.
Yes. Okay, you have Facebook. Okay, because I've only seen you on TikTok and on YouTube. All right, but we'll be dropping that in the description. Hayden, thank you so much for coming on the show. I know we are on different timelines, like I said before. It is a pleasure to have you on the show, and to me, this was great because I wanted to know more about numerology, and I think this was an interesting episode, and I appreciate it. I will definitely be looking more into numbers now, and I appreciate your time so much. So thank you for coming on the show.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.